Hey, what's up? It's Dan Riccio, Randeep Janda, and this week on the channel, it's time to discuss who the best team in Canada is, Randeep. And really, I mean, if we're being honest about it, it's between two teams, the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Calgary Flames. Who is it for you?
Oh, come on. Two teams. This is a one team conversation. It's the
One
Calgary
team.
Flames.
One
Yes.
team.
Of
Man, what
all
shade on the Leafs?
of
True
all
Western boy.
people, I can't believe I'm saying this because if you go back to our previous videos, I didn't think the Calgary Flames were much of anything before this season started, but even I have been converted to the other side. And before I talk about the Flames, let's talk about those glass-jawed Toronto Maple Leafs. They remind me of the late 80s heavyweight fighters that used to fight Mike Tyson. Remember, they go into the ring all confident, and then what would happen? They get smacked around. Those 70 points in a tough division, I give them respect for that. But when you're talking about one of the best teams in the league, the criteria is, can you win multiple ways? And the Toronto Maple Leafs, as far as I've seen, Dan, they don't win multiple ways. You can have a goal fest and win. Good for you. But the confidence in their game right now defensively isn't there. Goaltending, it's not there. So to me, it's a one-team conversation. The Calgary Flames are very strong defensively. They've got an elite goaltender. And as of right now, they've got the best line in hockey. So this is a one-team conversation.
All right, you're making me like make an argument for the Maple Leafs here, but the Leafs have the best skater in hockey this year in Austin Matthews to this point. You know, they've got Mitch Marner playing at an incredible level since he's come back off of the injury. They've got scoring all the way through their lineup for days and days and days. But yes, you're right. Like, it's so hard to make an argument for the Leafs right now with the way their defense is playing and the fact that they can't get a save. Like, you know, Sheldon Keefe is telling you himself, Jack Campbell needs some time away right now as he tries to get his head right and get back to making saves for this team, because he's been one of the worst goalies in the league since the calendar turned over to January 1, 2022. Peter Mrazek, you know, we didn't have much confidence in him in Carolina. So why would we have much confidence in him with the Toronto Maple Leafs? And the big difference for the Leafs this year, you know, I thought last year they did make some really big strides defensively as a team, but that's kind of all gone out the window this year. They don't play well defensively. The question marks about Jake Muzzin and Justin Hall have been well documented. So you're right. I got to agree with you here. The Calgary Flames are Canada's best team right now. And it's hard to poke a lot of holes in them, Randeep, especially with the best line in hockey going the way that it is, outscoring opponents by like an incredible amount of goals. I think they've got 47 goals for, 16 against. Johnny Gaudreau, Elias Lindholm, and Matthew Tkachuk. Anytime you have that kind of dominance with one line in your lineup, you're going to have some success.
And there's been a lot of, attention given to Johnny Gaudreau and Matthew Tkachuk because they are the wingers on that line. But Elias Lindholm is the real deal. If you've been able to watch him in previous years, the point totals weren't that high, but this year he's trending in that direction. He plays in all situations. He's kind of the straw that stirs the drink on that line. But even if we look beyond that line, the Tyler Toffoli deal is a big one because now they've got three lines deep that can actually provide some scoring, especially on that wing. And you've got a Lindholm and Backlund playing down the middle on the first two lines. But Dan, if
Yeah.
you look at that third line, I know Sean Monahan is not worth the money he's making, but Tyler Toffoli and him early on have some chemistry. So if Tyler Toffoli can make that go, you've got a team that's got three pretty decent lines. And as we say in the playoffs, styles make fights. Does anybody want to play a Calgary team that could get production from three different lines? They play a rough and tumble style when they need to, but they can play a high flying style as well. And on top of all of that, you've got
Yeah.
Jacob Markstrom, who in the crease, when he is relied upon, we've seen his numbers. And, this is not throwing shade on Jack Campbell or Peter Mrazek, but if you look at that 5-on-5 save percentage, they're bottom 7 or 8 in the league. For a team that is competing to be one of the better teams in the Atlantic Division and the Eastern Conference, that's simply not good enough. Whereas in Calgary, you can get goalied by them, they can pummel you, they can outscore you, and that in the playoffs is a very, very dangerous proposition. But it starts with line number one, because right now, even go ask the Minnesota Wild. Minnesota Wild are a great team. They're a solid team. I know they've been struggling of late, but over 2 games, Calgary put up 12 on them.
Yeah.
That's how good the Calgary Flames are right now, is when they start beating you up, it doesn't end well for you.
Only one team in the Western Conference with a better goal difference than the Flames. That is the Colorado Avalanche. And
Producer Drew will be happy with that one.
like, I look at the Flames and okay, I'm trying to put myself into a Flames fan's head. What keeps me up at night going into the playoffs about this team? And I think there's three concerns for the Flames going into the postseason. One, Johnny Gaudreau in the top line gets shut down. Is there enough offense to carry the mail when that happens, if that happens? Because we've seen and we know it's a narrative for Johnny Gaudreau's career. That's not me saying it. That's what we know and what has been the conversation for years. I think they could use another offensive defenseman. I know there's been links to Mark Giordano already, but I don't know how they're going to make that happen with their salary cap situation. I do wonder on defense as well. Zadorov and Goodbranson, hey, they've been one of the best third pairs in all of hockey this year, to the surprise of many. But, does their lack of speed show up more in the playoffs? So maybe a defenseman could be one of their priorities going into the trade deadline. And finally, and this is probably the biggest concern, Jacob Markstrom. The workload this year has been heavy, Randeep. And we know from watching him in Vancouver, whenever the workload got heavy, you started to see his game tail off a little bit. And even go back to the bubble playoffs for the Vancouver Canucks, Thatcher Demko had to close it out because Markstrom got hurt. I don't know how you quell that. I think Daryl Sutter and the Calgary Flames have to do something to try and give Markstrom more rest as they get closer to the playoffs.
Okay, that's a concern with any elite goaltender, is that if you work them too hard, does that wear them down? Does that cause injury? But the one thing I will say about Jacob Markstrom in Vancouver versus Calgary is that in Vancouver, there were chances left, right, and center. That defensive unit as a team was not very good. And, they were giving up a fair bit. Jacob Markstrom led the league in stolen games. We know that in Vancouver. In Calgary, they are top two when you're looking at high danger chances against and scoring chances against. They don't give up much. So the degree of difficulty, the workload in minutes is huge. But if you're looking at what is he actually facing in games, it's not even close to what he was doing in Vancouver. I agree with you. I think you need to have a capable backup for sure behind Jacob Markstrom, but I'm not worried necessarily about his workload because he's not seeing what he was seeing in Vancouver. Vancouver, it was come down the middle of the ice is open, and Jacob Markstrom's going to save the day. In Calgary, it's a little different. They are one of the better teams defensively across the league. I'm not worried about that. I think defense is where you have to add, where you're looking at adding a depth piece to say, if there's injuries and if this team is going on a long playoff run, do you have somebody behind Goodbranson? Do you have somebody behind Zadorov to fill the gap where that drop off is not significant? That's where I'm focusing. I think they're set at the winger spot right now. If Sean Monahan can get re-energized by Tyler Toffoli, they're fine at the center position as well. Defense is what I'm worrying about, and I think Treliving has to hit that.
So to close this out, we're pretty clear that the Calgary Flames right now are the best team in Canada, the way they are going and with the flaws the Leafs are showing at this minute. But are they a true cup contender for you, Randy? Like if you were to look at the Western Conference, how many teams, if any, are you putting ahead of the Calgary Flames right now?
Okay, if there's how many teams? There's one. It's the Colorado Avalanche. Like they are an absolute juggernaut of a team.
Just one?
Just one.
Just the Avs.
Okay, let's look at the other ones. The Vegas Golden Knights. We keep on giving them this respect to saying they're going to be a dangerous team, and I've been a part of that narrative.
Yeah.
But look at what they've done without Mark Stone. It's not a matter of whether Vegas makes the playoffs. It's where do they land? We were all anointing them as the first team in the Pacific. I don't know if that's going to happen based on the way they've looked. The other couple of teams, Minnesota Wild, I like what they do. I like the gritty style that they play, but they just got smacked around by the Calgary Flames, the ones that we're talking about. The St. Louis Blues, good gritty team, playoff contender, but I still like Calgary and their depth and what they have in goal better than what I see in St. Louis. So it's high praise, especially coming from me, somebody who did not think this team would get it done in the preseason. And I admit defeat on that one, but styles make fights. Which one of these teams outside of Colorado maybe wants to play the Calgary Flames in the playoffs? Nobody wants to play Calgary if they look like this.
Colorado is the juggernaut of the West, and producer Drew is just absolutely loving this
grinning.
Right now.
Just giddy right now.
I think Vegas can get there, but until we see Mark Stone, Jack Eichel, and the whole band playing together, I have a hard time putting them ahead of Calgary, who's put quite the case on paper. I mean, you look at every statistic, every metric. The Calgary Flames are pretty much best in the league in the way that they control shots, they control scoring chances, everything you go down the line. and Calgary is doing it well. So it's really difficult to carve the argument that they shouldn't be there. I think it's Vegas. I would put them ahead, but it's hard to really be confident in that until we've seen them at full flight with Markstrom back into that lineup. It's Dan Riccio and Randy Janda. Let us know who you think the best team in Canada is, and if the Flames are a true Stanley Cup contender. Let us know in the comments. We'll respond to as many as we can. Subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.